Everyone, can you just have a quick show of hand? How many of you guys are from network background, network backgrounds, and how many are from server backgrounds? Okay, yeah. So I think the way things are going, slowly both will merge because that's the expectation from the business. That's the expectation from technology vendors. The server vendors are saying. They are driving basically software-defined networking, and they are saying network vendors are going to go away, everything is going to be in software, so we better be prepared. That's the ask of the business, so we need to be ready. So I think you had a Vodafone session sometime back, so this slide will look quite familiar to you. So the usual telecom slides, everything is growing. Everything that you can think of in IT world is growing. The only thing that is not growing is the budget. So, that's the challenge. Everything needs to grow without growing the budget. From our point of view, from pure campus point of view, the simplest of the network basically, the campus network. One thing to worry about or one thing to note is that the number of mobile devices, when I say mobile means non-wired devices, that are growing pretty fast. The last line over here, about 35% of the workforce is either corporate is giving pure mobile devices or people are bringing their own mobile devices, and we are expected to somehow incorporate them as part of the LAN. That's going to be the challenge that we are going to talk about. The usual slides, most of the IT, anything to do with IT has to start with an app store slide. So this is the one we are talking about. From our point of view, on the left side, we have all the applications which are either given by business or we use it for business, right from Salesforce.com to SAP and other applications. On the right side is all your personal applications. In between are all the productivity applications. It could be banking applications, it could be your Evernote, it could be your Skype that you use for business. The thing is, from the right to left, things are slowly merging. There is no clear demarc. Initially, when the laptops and desktops were given by corporates, IT, we used to control what all apps will be installed and we used to support those apps. But now, even for doing the basic business jobs, people are using third-party apps. People are using other tools, tools that they're comfortable with. You cannot dictate that all the tools have to be only IT. And that's the reality. We have to accept that. So people call it BYOD, but it comes down to basically some new applications that we need to support. Or at least we will, tolerate. It's not always supported. We tolerate new applications. So on the left side, things are pretty clear. Clients are moving towards whether we want it or not. Somehow, lots of companies have gone ahead and said, initially, yes, all BYOD, you can bring your own device. We will allow you in the network. Some people have gone back. But the reality is you have to start supporting multiple devices. You cannot say you will have to use only Windows. If people bring their own Mac, you have to support them, simple. And the problem or the good thing is that this is driven by the top down. Your CIO is the first one to bring out with a Mac laptop, MacBook Air, and iPad. I said, now you support it. So, it has to be, so we are doing it ad hoc. It has to become structured. That's the main challenge. From technology point of view, this is how the things gets categorized or bucket. The main things people are looking, new things are the unique things that you're looking in the campus is BYOD, unified policy and security, because now you have a mobile, you have laptops, desktops, how to have the unification over there. Unified communication was always there. Things are now moving purely towards software. Most of the people are beginning to use Link as their primary communication media, either for collaboration or for chat or for voice also. So things seems to be moving fast in that direction. Wireless access is one thing to remember about. If you ask me, 5 years down the line, wired access will slowly go away. It doesn't make sense to have wired access because it is much cheaper, faster to roll out, much more flexible to have wireless. So that's going to happen, whether we want it or not. Distribution and core will remain wired. Access will go away to wireless. Data center, almost similar kind of approach, almost driven by the same trend, virtualization, cost optimization basically. Cloud, there's a huge difference between virtualization and cloud, and most of the challenge from our point of view will be, from IT point of view, will be to understand the difference. Virtualization is just consolidating multiple applications into a few number of tin boxes. But what you do after that, that is the easy part. After that, the whole idea you did that was to save cost. But the second part is, you put that virtual machine on a tin box, which is good for today, but let's say December 31st, there is a big surge of traffic. Do you have the capability to migrate that into a bigger hardware in the live environment? Basically, can you do vMotion? Are you ready for that or not? So that's the second stage. Then the third stage comes, let's say whenever a new application is being rolled out, can you provision those servers in 2 minutes or not? Amazon can do it for lots of people. Can you do it for yourself? That's what the cloud talks about. Cloud is all about agility. It's not about virtualization. People tend to confuse that. Application mobility, and the last one, which is driving all the data center thing, is the orchestration, automation, and orchestration. In fact, the SDN is trying to play that role. Don't be fooled. SDN is the way SDN, nobody knows what the SDN is going to be, but the way it stands, most of the tools, the day one technologies that are being available in the market are all targeted towards automation and orchestration, even for the network and servers all combined together. So network was always the key. Now with the kind of dynamic changes we are seeing, it is becoming much more critical. The expectation is very weird now. So I need to have my network, which was always in the campus, to be available in my home also. I want the same network experience to be available in my cyber cafe. Most of my sales guys are always on the field. They work on using NetConnect data card from Reliance, so they should have the same experience. So challenge is, so the expectation is very different. The world was moving, the network can't stand still, which was fine, but the network is basically expecting that the whole world is your campus now. You need to treat, you cannot treat saying WAN will not have access to these things. These applications will not work in WAN. This application will not work in internet. Everything has to work across everything now. Everything is a campus. The campus per se has to become like a WAN. So the best way to envisage your unified security is think everything which comes from wireless to be coming from internet. As soon as you think in that way, things becomes much simpler because you allow people to access your application from internet, your corporate users, and you put so-and-so policy, either VPN or something. If you take the same policies and apply it on the wireless LAN, then it becomes much easier. Whether you bring your laptop, iPad, doesn't make a difference. Because I am not guarding the entry point. I am guarding the entry point in the data center, which is more relevant because LAN is now as open as possible. Obviously, it's not black and white, but that's the approach we need to take. We need to treat everything like an open access, and only data center is the mode that you need to protect. As the challenge we talked about, IT wants control. Because at the end, when something breaks, people come to IT and say, yes, fix it. So the only way IT can be more effective is he wants control. But reality is that's slowly going away. It's not possible to have control over everything. And users want flexibility. I want to bring whatever device, it should work. And in between the guy is the CIO who has to manage the budget. So I see everyone smiling at least or not laughing. So this is pretty true. This is pretty much practical everyday fighting. From technical perspective, the LAN evolution is pretty much clear. Everything used to be wired. Now things are moving towards wireless. With the new 11AC being ratified, initial products are coming which are not good, but the stage 2 products you will see that people are actually able to deliver up to 1.5 Gbps on wireless per access point. Provided so and so and so and so, but yes, it is going to be reality in a couple of years. You will move towards wireless LAN. The reason being, people are used to working on data cards. People are used to working with 2 Mbps of broadband connection from home. So wireless can definitely do that. So even though my interest is in selling switching, but the reality happens that wireless is going to be the prime media. We need to prepare for that. The small baby steps that you take today to accommodate wireless will help you in that phase. Because the initial deployments of wireless today are pretty much, you do ad hoc. But if you plan it properly, say, I need to have same policies that I apply, dynamic policy, compliance should be taken care when you come from wireless. Automatic provisioning should happen. Every time somebody brings a new wireless device, he should not come to IT and say, can you help me configure it? That's not going to be scalable. So there should be automatic way of provisioning those new devices. If you start taking those baby steps, you will be ready for this. All the devices used to be corporate owned. Now things are not so much clear. Apps used to be owned and managed by corporate. Now either you go to salesforce.com or lots of people go with Google Docs. The whole email, everything is outsourced. It is a mix and match. Basically, you look for whichever is giving you the best bang for buck. Security used to be very simple. Put a firewall, things are done. Now security is every point because your devices are not confined inside your LAN. It is spread out. App is changing. The important problem is now the networks which used to be, especially this is very relevant to multi-tenant networks like IT services. You have multiple ODCs. They are basically crafting small networks inside the big network, and that's how the management becomes difficult. What is the best way to combine these isolated network into a single network, still give air gaps? Air gap is the key ask from most of the ITS customers. Say, I don't want my routes to be mixing with everyone and stuff like that. Can you manage that? If you can take care of these, you pretty much take care of campus as well as network environments. Couple of things we will talk about. How people are doing it, how Juniper is doing it as of today. Couple of key principles. We always knew it at the back of the mind. I've just put it on the paper. Is build a flatter network, simpler. That means don't depend on lots of protocols, proprietary protocols. Try to use very few protocols and make it as simple as possible. The way this is done mostly is today technologies are available to combine multiple switches in a single cluster. When switches are working in a cluster, various vendors have various names, but it comes down to some kind of software cluster where you can have 5, 6, 7, 10 switches working as a single switch, chassis-based switches working as a single switch. The idea being when you make them work as a single switch as a software cluster, then you don't need to configure any protocols between them. Those bunch of switches in a cluster can be software upgraded in a single go. You don't need to upgrade those 4, 5, 7 switches. We used to have 2 separate core switches. Now most of the time you will see one cluster of core switches to be used. These kind of technologies, can we expand it further? Can we go beyond the usual 2 and make it much bigger? Deploy an agile solution. This is very important. The reason being, especially from the data center point of view, the VMware and everyone else, Microsoft including, they are driving a totally new sets of protocols. They are saying we need VXLAN protocol for VMware to work properly. Microsoft is saying I need NVGRE to work for my next set of features to come in. Can your network do that? If not today, at least the hardware is capable, or do you need to replace the whole hardware? We normally don't check it. From the campus point of view, probably you can survive, but from the data center point of view, that needs to be taken care. Most of the time, add, move, and changes is still the promise of NMS. Who loves NMS in the room? I see no one. But right from the day one, when I started, somewhere in some 10, 15 years back, people expected lots of things for NMS. NMS never delivered. The reason being, NMS was a collection of data. It was never giving analytics. The big data problem that is normally is thought to be a problem that is not relevant to network is actually very, very relevant. We can generate so much log. There is so much information, but there is no big data. So people are beginning to develop tools so that you can bring out intelligence, write intelligence, and just precipitate the small amount of data that you can use. Otherwise, syslogs, flow data is huge. Once that comes into picture, then the automatic provisioning comes into picture. If you see capacity constraints, can the network automatically adjust itself? That's where the promise of SDN comes into picture. So SDN will be driven by analytics. Analytics is the first input that the SDN will take and then dynamically provision lots of things. So I'm hopeful, at least the NMS never delivered what it always said. But let's say the next phase of NMS, which is based on analytics, based on big data, something will be done over there. Still, I'm waiting. Okay, still I don't see it immediately this year or next year, but things seems to be moving. People are thinking about that. As I said about security, no single box. It has to be point security. That means every point needs to be covered. All the entry points needs to be covered. Unification of wired and Wi-Fi. I said the secret sauce from the campus simplification is always clustering. Some kind of clustering. Juniper calls it virtual chassis. In Juniper's terminology, it's very simple. You can have a bunch of switches. Some switches over here, some switches over here, spread across buildings, spread across floors, maybe spread across buildings. Some way, via software, can you combine them into a single entity? Once you combine them in a single entity, good thing is, let's say there are 100 ports, 1,000 ports overall. You don't need to see 1,000 ports as 10 different switches. You need to see them as single switch with 1,000 ports. Things becomes much easier. Software upgrade becomes easier. No protocols to run between those switches because they are all clustered together and stuff like that. It will deliver you multiple switches acting as a single logical switch. So spanning tree point of view, things becomes much simpler. One switch to configure, one switch to manage. Don't need to do lots of .q tagging. And obviously resiliency performance, because everything is in the software cluster world, the expectation is since you are clustering multiple boxes, there will be a good amount of resiliency built in there. Just a small example over here. This might be typical, might not be typical. This is a spread campus with about 2,000 users. 5 buildings, about 400 users per building, and each building has about 4 floors. Not a typical IT company, but think it like a normal non-IT company. You will realize that most of the factories, most of the biotech companies are built like this, exactly like this. In this scenario, if you see, this is a basic structure. Everyone builds a network like this. There are core, distribution, and lots of floor switches. If you count the number of switches, basically access switches comes to about 50, managed aggregation switches is about 10, core is about 2. If you start deploying clusters, you can deploy the same switches without cluster. You can enable the cluster as and when you want. The first step is cluster the access to reduce from 50 to 5 over here. And then these cores can again be clustered together. So you will have lesser number of cores, in this case 5. And the core again can become 2 to 1. Right from, if you see this number, 65 switches to become 11, things becomes much easier automatically. Software upgrade is just 11 switches to be upgraded. You can do it much faster than you can do otherwise. These kind of technologies are also coming in the core chassis-based switches. So let's say if your data center has so many number of ports and you are forced to have 4, 5, 7 number of chassis, can you combine them in a single software? Yes. In this particular scenario, these are all 16-slot chassis, 8 number of them. In this case, they are being deployed as an aggregation switch across campus. So when you log into this switch from anywhere, you will actually not see a 16-slot chassis into 8, but you will see 16 into 8 comes to about 96-slot chassis. If you have never worked on this Juniper switches, you will suddenly realize that how come you can have almost 100 slots in a chassis. Physically, they are not. Physically, they are spread out. So it's not just restricted to 1U switches. It works across. In the data center side, we have something very unique. We can have up to 128 switches work like a single switch. This was one proprietary SDN that we had launched some time back, but we never marketed it as SDN because SDN was pretty new. People were scared. But the whole data center, any point in the data center to any point in the data center, you can have no core, no distribution, no access. Everything can be a flat switch. We call it a Q-Fabric. If you're interested, just search for that term, Q-Fabric, you will get the details. The idea being, we are doing it for some time. The things are pretty mature. Now lots of other vendors are beginning to do it, basically combining multiple switches to look like a single switch. Makes our job easier. That was traditional software-based, all tweaking and manipulation to make the thing simpler. Let's introduce the SDN. What all can we do? There are 3 main areas where, from the network point of view, where the SDN will play a role. The first is the workflow automation. That means most of your configuration, most of your provisioning should be taken care of faster or easier. That's the whole plan over there. The second part is the dynamic nature of the network. That means based on the user, it's not device-centric, it's user-centric. If I bring my Mac, if I bring my Windows, still I need to get the same level of access, provided you are complying. So combining the intelligence of device and user and the application context, change the access level, change the configuration, change the QS, basically making a bit more dynamic. These technologies were always possible. We always avoided that. The first generation of the technologies was always called as NAC technologies. NAC never took off because it took lots of integration. But the way things are going, the next generation of NAC, we will be forced to use them because now the devices are multiple. We need to check the compliance because we don't own the device. So these things are being forced upon us. And SDN will, one of the ask or one of the expectations from the SDN is it will make these things a bit easier. The last part is CIO's problem, that is how to simplify the licensing. Microsoft licensing is pretty simple. Might not be cheaper, but it's very simple. You just buy 5,000 users and forget about it. You get the whole licensing. In networking, if you, let's say, buy a firewall from a vendor, if you buy a SSL VPN from a vendor, any kind of networking or access devices you buy, you don't buy it based on user. You buy on the capacity of the box. Let's say you have 5,000 users in your whole network. You buy a particular firewall. Number of applications increase and the CPU utilization of the firewall is going high, you are asked to throw away the firewall and buy a new firewall and buy the new set of licenses. Wouldn't it be good to have a corporate licensing policy saying license remains same, yeah, firewall hardware is now, probably you need to change the hardware, but the software licensing will remain same, irrespective of what hardware you use. Why not bring that mentality in the IT world, in the network world and the security world? I will charge you based on the number of users. What hardware, what size of hardware you decide. It's up to you. Hardware is not the binding factor. One of the first things that we launched, it's already people are deploying is, let's say if you have a really big network and you are not able to, one thing about clustering is clustering works only between like switches. Cluster basically means you can cluster, let's say, Oracle database to an Oracle database. You cannot mix two different kinds of things together, isn't it? So that's the problem. In network, you don't have all the switches of same size. That's why I said core was clustered together, distribution was clustered together, access was clustered together. But you cannot cluster an access to a distribution or to a core because they are separate, different size switches. The capacities are different. You cannot cluster them together. In that case, what to do? Across the layers, can you do it? So this is the one way to solve it. This is already being delivered. People are deploying it. Why not logic? The state table wise, the session wise, they are different, but from the management point of view, from the NMS point of view, can they still become one? The idea being various topologies over here. There is no restriction on the topology. Let's say I will simplifying it to this. As a user, as an NMS or whatever tool you have, you log into this box and do all the configuration for your network in the single box. This guy will retain the configuration that is relevant to him and push out rest of the configuration in other boxes. There are hundreds of boxes down here, doesn't make a difference. So from your point of view, even though the boxes are not clustered, but this guy takes the he becomes the virtual controller for the rest of the network. One switch becomes the virtual controller from the rest of the network. So if you want to do a software upgrade, you just push the software over here and say, now go and upgrade everyone. This switch will go and figure out and upgrade everyone one by one. Yeah, so what sir is saying, can it go from core to distribution or access? So as of now, obviously, it's, the basic requirements are these are the three topologies supported. Everything needs to be directly connected. So most probably it will not propagate two steps, it will propagate only one step. Those probably will improve as we go forward, but distribution, or maybe from distribution to the access, you decide. Yeah, so as of now, the idea being, this guy is controlling only the directly connected networks, or if you are in a ring, then also it's possible. If it is 2 hops away, that is, if you go by the traditional 3-tier architecture, as of now it is not, but it will come slowly. So this is only 1 year old, so things are pretty mature, but feature set is as they are. The idea being, from here, you have hundreds of switches, you can just say upgrade, push the software over here and it will upgrade hundreds of switches. From the NMS point of view, this is the only node you will see. You will not see any of these boxes. If you want to see SNMP trap, none of the boxes will send you SNMP trap. He will aggregate all the SNMP trap and give you a single SNMP trap. So from all practical purposes, this is a single box solution for whole campus. You can have it. The only constraint being everything needs to be directly connected or they need to be in a ring as of now, which is the case with most of the campuses from IT/ITES point of view. Everyone connects back to the core. All the access hub rooms have a direct fiber to the core. It's fine. Pretty effective, and the good thing is it works with various models of switches. Obviously, only with Juniper as of now. So you can have one different type of switch on the top. You can have different types of switches in the bottom, data center switches, access switches, 10/100, gigabit, 10G, 40 gig, doesn't make a difference. Pretty effective, we are using it quite a lot over here. But still, this is all jugglery. What about, one of the important things about SDN was, if the new protocols come, can you accommodate those? VXLAN, NVGRE, which are already on the table. You can see 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, those are coming. But beyond that, more protocols come. Are vendors beginning to develop such a switch which can be programmed from that point of view? When you say software defined means you don't need to change the hardware every time a new protocol comes into picture, isn't it? So is it possible? In fact, this switch was launched at the start of this year by Juniper. It is still not supporting any of the protocols that I talked about, but there is a roadmap to do that. And the intent is we can support any of the protocols. Everything is programmable. All the ASICs that we have provided is not hard-coded. It can be programmed to support new protocols as it comes. Today, these switches are being used to have integration with the VMware. From the OpenStack, VMware integrates, either you can have a VMware console from which you can control the switches, by the way. Let's say when you provision a new server and give a new IP address, and you can define what is the VLAN, and that new VLAN will be created across the network today. This is applicable to data center, by the way, because all these orchestration technology that you see are available only in the data center. So that's the reason I'm saying it's only works in the data center as of now. It's not working in the campus. The reason being these tools don't work in the campus. So you can use any of these tools, Puppet or Juniper Contrail or OpenFlow. All of these can be, the idea being, from the data center point of view, when I said the server guys and the network guys are merging, I didn't say application guys. The server guys means the guys who maintain the basic operating system and stuff like that. With VMware, the way VMware and Microsoft, the way they are driving it is the data center manager or the data center operator, if you go to him and say, I want 3 Windows server with so-and-so, let's say Oracle or whatever loaded on top of it, he can provision it now with the tools that they have, but he cannot touch the network. For network, you need to go to a separate guy. For the server, for the firewall, you need to go to a third guy. Can it be done from the same tool? Yes, the initial few tools are already available. We have integration with OpenStack, Puppet, OpenFlow. OpenFlow is again one of the protocols. One thing to OpenFlow, whenever in network world people talk about SDN, people immediately think OpenFlow. OpenFlow is just one protocol. It's not SDN. The expectation was using OpenFlow protocol, people will write SDN application. So OpenFlow was never SDN. OpenFlow was one of the protocols to program the switch, but the SDN is still not there. Somebody has to write the SDN. So these can be SDN as of now, OpenStack, Puppet. These guys are beginning to do small job. The bigger jobs are, you need to be ready for it. The other inherent problem, how to simplify the network is don't create islands of network. Can you take a single box and craft it into multiple logical boxes? Juniper, the core switches have a couple of concepts. One is called logical systems. In this case, the memory, the RAM, everything is partitioned. You can have up to 16 logical entities separately. Each of these logical entities can be managed by totally different guys. The guy who logs into logical system 1 cannot even see what is happening in logical system 2. Memory is partitioned, everything is partitioned. Then the other form of virtualization is MPLS. Actually, it was very surprising. I come from pure enterprise background, and last 3 years I've seen that MPLS being deployed widely inside enterprises. Go to any of your big IT/ITS companies. CTS is thinking in that way. Wipro is already thinking in that way. A couple of customers I will not name have already gone that way. They are using private MPLS, not go to service provider and say, give me MPLS. They go to Vodafone, take the bandwidth, go to Airtel, take the bandwidth, and run their own private MPLS on top of it. That's happening. The reason being, you want to grab, initially every project used to ask for a separate bandwidth. With MPLS, you become your own service provider and you can craft a bandwidth. Say, this project will take 1 Mbps, I can craft it for you. So the network guy has become like a profit center. He's billing back the projects. And he's using the same common infrastructure. I was very surprised, but things are happening. People were already trying to do it using GRE and stuff like that. People realized that's not an efficient. Go with the standard-based protocol MPLS. Private MPLS. And then the chassis, virtual chassis, or the clustering I talked about, cluster multiple boxes into single boxes. All 3 forms of virtualization, pretty effective. These are all in production I have seen. It starts, normally the bigger guys have a problem, so they try to solve this initially, and I have seen the guys lower down are beginning to do that. Airports, it was very common. In fact, if you go to Mumbai International Airport, they have huge terminal. If you go to Delhi International Airport, there are about 30,000 ports in the Terminal 3. They all use all these 3 concepts. They take a single box, divide it into multiple boxes, because they don't want, let's say, a particular airline to have network mixed with any other airline. You have basically your surveillance system, which is running on the same where your internet access is being provided. You don't want them to disturb each other. How to do that? Actually, they are doing this like this. And by the way, both of the airports are using MPLS pretty extensively in the backend because it's pretty dynamic. Jet Airways has a counter over here, then he tomorrow moves over there. You cannot move the network, but with MPLS and stuff, virtualization, you can craft those things pretty effectively over there. This is just a representation for IT/ITS. You can have multiple ODCs. They all have their separate L2 switches, let's say, or logical. In L2, segregation is pretty simple, do a VLAN. But as soon as the layer 3 comes into picture, you have the mixing. So you need to have capacity to divide that box into multiple boxes. People are doing it already. BYOD. As I talked about, BYOD is, the story starts from the NAC that we never did. That is coming back to bite us because now we are forced to do that. If I go and ask people, how many of you have deployed 802.1x on the LAN? People say, no, I have not done it. But if you see from the wireless point of view, this is the first way you start. You do 802.1x and that's how you start. And the main problem with 802.1x or basically policy enabling each of the nodes was how to deploy 802.1x. Nobody wanted to touch the desktops. But now if you come from the wireless world, you are already forced to do that. So the 802.1x, the first hurdle is gone. That means you can now identify the device. Once you identify the device, then the next step is easy. Start pushing the policies over there. This is guest user environment. It can be in corporate, can be in a hospital. In this case, it's in a hospital. The person over here is self-registering by putting the mobile number. After that, he gets the access. But still, you don't want to give him complete access. As soon as he starts consuming more bandwidth, basically give him a warning saying it's a shared environment, don't abuse it, kind of stuff. The products in the bag are irrelevant. Basically, you will obviously need a firewall. You will need a provisioning server, wireless LAN controller, and switches are required. And obviously, you need a control server from where you can do policy management. From the BYOD point of view, you allow any person to bring their own devices. As soon as they log in, they should get a portal. This is very important. Portal is very important. The reason being, you don't have any configuration over there. So whether he comes from a laptop, on wireless, it's pretty simple to give a portal where people authenticate. Can you do the same thing on a LAN? Because if he connects his personal laptop on a LAN, you should be able to throw a portal in which he's supposed to log in. Once he logs in, then you determine whether you want to give him an access. If you want to give him an access, what kind of access, whether you want to give him full access, partial access, that you need to decide. Components remain same, so guest access solution is same as the BYOD solution over here. This is a small schematic. Basically, it comes down to you need to have switches which can throw that portal. That's a very important concept because wireless LAN can throw a portal. If you go to any of the airports, connect your Wi-Fi, you get an IP address, but then you get a portal in which you are supposed to log in. You have to find out technologies which can do the same on your switches, right at the entry point. If your switches can throw the portal, then things becomes much easier. You don't need to touch the laptop operating system to configure any authentication because they can come to the portal, type the authentication themselves over there. Policy server remains the authentication server and the resources, the typical block diagrams. So I was fast, I went through it fast. I'm open to questions. The idea was to just give you a flavor of what things are happening, and if you think SDN is not there, it's available. Juniper SDN, by the way, is called Contrail, C-O-N-T-R-A-I-L. You can do a Google for it. We have an open source version, so you can download the whole suite and try it out in your labs. Get your hands dirty. We are the only one offering it as an open source. And we have the supported version. Open source is obviously non-supported. If you come to me and the whole data center piece, it's complete, working, ready. It's available. People are deploying it. A couple of cloud service providers have already deployed those. Try it out. I'm open to questions. I would like to have, yeah.
Virtual chassis.
Yeah.
So how access switches can be reduced in more elaborate?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah. So the question was, he wanted to know a bit about virtual chassis. I mean, the whole concept of clustering, what it does, what are we really trying to do? The reason we named this thing as virtual chassis is, if you look at a chassis, there are 10 blades or maybe 16 blades. If you look at a bigger chassis now, there are maybe more blades, but everything works as a single box. Okay, but normally the chassis-based systems are pretty expensive. The reason being they have more capacity from software point of view because they have a dedicated CPU. But from access point of view, you don't need that software capacity because there are not so many routes. There are limited number of routes, limited number of MAC address. But you like the concept of a chassis. That means you can upgrade the whole 20 cards as if they are a single, because they'll act like a single chassis. You can upgrade all of them pretty fast. But if you want to do that in the access, you need to buy a chassis, which is very wrong. I mean, I don't need chassis, but just for the ease of management, I need to buy a chassis. So this virtual chassis basically replicates all the functionality that you have in a chassis. That means it detects itself, forms a cluster. You don't need to put them in the same rack, by the way. You can have it across, let's say, across 2 floors, doesn't make a difference. They need to be connected to each other using fiber. We started with 128 gigabit proprietary cables. Now we have moved to 40 gig standard base cable. You can connect these boxes using 40 gig or 10 gig fibers. And once they are connected to each other, you can say cluster. And it's as simple as that. You are all part of virtual chassis. And then it will assign a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, up to 20 they can assign. So they become line cards. So automatically it will designate these guys as line card. One of the guys will become a CPU. And when you log into the CPU automatically. And whatever you configure is propagated to everyone. So it is like a chassis in all functionality. Other than that, it's not in the same rack. It can be spread out. It's not in a tin box. There is no dedicated CPU because we don't need that kind of software scale. So, yeah. Yeah. So the idea being, let's say if I ask you to create a network of 200 users. If you go and buy 24 port or 48 port switches, you buy 10 of those. But if you buy a chassis, you buy only one, isn't it? And you call it a one switch. The only reason you call it a one switch is you can do a single software upgrade, you can manage simply, you can configure simply. Everything is single entity. The same functionality is being replicated over here. You cannot, because the physical ports has to be there, you cannot do away with that, but everything works as a chassis, so that's the reason. Chassis is always perceived to be simple to manage because it can offer so many things. We are offering the same thing in this virtual form factor.
Reducing the single point of failure also because we are updating one switch.
Yeah.
One switch you are updating the version on one switch, if anything gets failed.
Yeah, the question here is, once you do this clustering, and basically you introduce one guy as the controller, and you do everything from that guy, that becomes a single point of failure, obviously. So that's why when you say virtual chassis, there is a clustering mechanism wherein there are multiple CPUs are designated and everything is replicated. We support couple of protocols. So when I ask you, do you know stacking, by the way? So when I ask you what is the difference between stacking and chassis, what is the software feature difference? The couple of things that are different is non-stop routing. That means if the CPU goes down in a chassis, everything continues to work because the second CPU will take over immediately. In a stack, if the primary box goes down, master goes down, everything goes down. It will take over in half a minute, 20 seconds, whatever, but everything is flushed out, all the table is flushed out and comes up again. So what we have done is not I'm not using stacking technology, I'm using chassis technology. That means when the master goes off here, everything is pre-replicated. Now, the couple of features that you need to look for in such a scenario is non-stop routing, non-stop bridging, in-service software upgrade. If you can do that, yes, that's what we are doing over here. So these boxes, they are clustered together. So we designate two controller, one master controller, one backup controller, and they are in sync. So they will replicate each other. So, right question.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I will add both the questions. Yes. Sir, you have one more?
No, I think I had another question. Yeah. Maybe you can answer the master controller. What happens when master controller goes down? Then I will ask the other question.
Okay. I hope I have time. So the way it is, when you connect multiple boxes, let's say 10 or 16 of these boxes together, you have to see the wireless. Lots of people have already delivered it, and the way it is moving, wireless is the area where the SDN has actually taken first. If you see any controller-based environment, we actually have an option of purely software-based controllers if you want. There, the concept of centralization has really taken well. That means you can decide this is the data center where the controller is going to sit, and your access points can be anywhere in the branches or in the same campus or across the world. Okay. It is possible today. That takes care of the integration easy because you have to integrate only one point. You might have 20,000 access points, but the integration point becomes the controller. You integrate everything with single controller. The problem with this approach, if you see the parallel in the PBX world was always same. If I say that in IP telephony world, if any phone to any phone, all communication has to happen via the PBX, it's not a scalable model, isn't it? That's why in IP PBX, when the one phone talks to any other phone, the traffic that goes to the controller is only the control traffic. The actual data, the payload, actually bypasses the controller completely. But in wireless, that's not happening. That's the reason you need to have multiple controllers. In a branch or in a second office, you need to have another controller because wireless, the way it stands today, all the traffic, whether they are in the same LAN or probably in the same access point, two users want to talk to each other, everything goes back to the controller and he's switching it. So he becomes the choke point. That's the reason you're not able to do it. So we started working on this some years back. Now we are using exactly the same model as the IP telephony. That is only the control signal goes to the PBX. The peer-to-peer traffic, whether it's across, let's say I have one access point here, one access point on another floor. When they talk to each other, it will be locally switched. By whom? Whoever can switch it. So either if the two users on the same access point, it will be switched by the access point. If I am connected to this access point, the other user is connected to this access point, they ultimately connect to a switch. Then the local L2 switch will switch it. You don't need to go back to the controller, which might be in the data center or across the core. So when you combine two, centralization of control and distributed processing. Once you combine that, that's what the promise of SDN is. The way to drive simplification is control should be centralized, but the processing, which is the scale, should be distributed. So yes, it's possible. Maybe other vendors are also by doing it. Might not be in the full way, but people are beginning to drive that. We are already driving it in most of the cases over here. So That's possible. What you are saying, that's the reason we are saying wireless is going to be the main access mechanism, because people are working towards that problem. It's already being solved.
Just one more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Then I will take offline. I think somebody else
Yeah.
can ask.
I think
Yeah.
I will come to you, sir. Sorry.
No, I have the mic. Just adding towards his comment. For the wireless network,
Yeah.
Would we have a limitation on the bandwidth?
Yeah. So wireless network will, you're right, absolutely. Wireless is a shared media. When I say 1 gig, it's like a 1 gig hub on which 20 users are connected. So it will always be shared media. So one thing to remember about wireless, people take it for granted, is wireless problem in a campus, inside especially the offices, is not a problem of coverage. It's a problem of capacity that you need to solve. So people always assume if I put one good access point and it gives me good coverage, I will go for a brand which will give me maximum coverage. That's not the way to design it. You always work the backward. In this room, there are 20 users. For 20 users to have enough bandwidth, how many access points do I need? Okay. So it's no longer a coverage problem. It comes down to capacity problem. You have to plan for capacity. Most of the wireless LAN planning tools available will have an option of capacity planning. But we tend, the traditional way, wireless was always a backup media. So it was always that couple of access points which can cover every corner. That is all is needed. But approach the problem from a capacity perspective, things looks differently, and that's the way to solve it. By the way, giving 20 Mbps per user is very, very good. Okay. I will give you a couple of strategies to solve this. One is switch off 2.4 gigahertz. Don't use 2.4 gigahertz. Most of the modern devices, iPad, Android phones, as well as new devices work on 5 gigahertz. 5 gigahertz has got huge amount of channels. You can completely avoid channel interference if you go to 5 gigahertz. And you can reduce the signal strength of 5 gigahertz. That is one. But you still have to support 2.4 gigahertz because there will always be devices which I bought 4 years back, 3 years back, which supports 2.4 gigahertz. So 2.4 gigahertz, you need to ensure there is some algorithm in place, or the vendor should have some algorithm in place wherein if the device comes with 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz capability, he should be forced to connect only on 5 gigahertz. Decongest the 2.4 gigahertz because 2.4 gigahertz is already over constrained. The strategy is you should start moving towards 5 gigahertz, and if somebody connects on 2.4 gigahertz, force it away. And there should be algorithm in place to distribute the load. I will give a couple of examples. I hope still have time? Yeah, just 2 minutes. 2 minutes, perfect. Wireless is a critical, if you take this conference room, normally let's say all these, take a typical conference room in your office. Everyone is distributed, everyone is working at their desk, access point is there distributed, every access point has, let's say, 10 users, something like that. When you call a meeting, everyone comes in the room like this. There are only 2 access points. How many users? 100, 200 users. How to solve this problem? Because the algorithm on the laptop or iPad is very simple. Whoever gives me the strongest signal, I will connect there. But there is an access point just across this wall, which is not giving a good signal, but there is no user. There is huge capacity lying idle over there. Laptops and mobile phones don't have the algorithm to just go over there. The controller needs to have that intelligence to figure out that these users are very close to each other. Even though the devices will see a slower signal, I should force them to distribute the load. People don't think about it. Technologies are available, look for it. Basically, this is called user load balancing. That means user doesn't go to the highest signal access point, but is spread across. Even though the signal strength is low, but the performance is much better outside. There might be 5 access points across it. Inside the room, there are 2. Why not use all 7? Possible. Use those strategies.
Right. Whatever we discussed seemed to be applicable for a new setup.
Yes.
How much of this is applicable for an existing setup, and how much of this is vendor neutral or vendor agnostic?
Yeah. So good thing, 2 things. Applicable to existing setup, unless and until you build an overlay technology, this will not be applicable to any of those. Virtual chassis, if I see, is very specific to Juniper, so it will be very applicable to me. But wireless, if you see, wireless again, if you have already deployed a normal access point, there is no intelligence, the controller is not intelligent, you cannot derive those. So there maybe you can add some overlay. Basically, it comes down to having a good NMS and probably something over there. If you see the SDN in the data center, most of that is on the overlay technology. So to solve the problem of VXLAN and NVGRE, VMware is building that stack on the server itself. So the server will form almost like a GRE tunnel between the servers. So they are bypassing the whole LAN. So you have built a LAN, data center LAN. It doesn't support any of the modern protocols. So all these vendors, Microsoft, VMware, everyone is building an overlay protocol on top of it. You create this multiple servers, let's say with VMware, if you have Nicira, the new acquisition that they bought, was basically on this. All these virtual machines discover each other and do a GRE tunnel. And they talk to each other using GRE tunnel. Basically, they bypass the switches. That's where the challenge lies. If you don't upgrade the network, then overlay takes over, and you have much bigger challenge. Now, as a network engineer, you don't have visibility into what is flowing because everything is encapsulated and flows across. So it's a bigger challenge. So whether the server guys does it, he doesn't want to do it, by the way. He doesn't like networking because for him it's one more headache. But he's forced to do that. So you better buy switches or something which can do that. Otherwise, the overlay is a technology people are already beginning to deploy it. Most of the initial deployments of Nicira-based vMotion is on overlay. So if you don't do it, support it underline, then it has to be overlay, which might not be very elegant. By the way, let's say if you are deploying wireless on top of wired, that can be totally independent. So if you look at from new technology point of view, adding capacity, you can add access points on the existing switches because the access points normally are not dependent on your wired infrastructure. If they are dependent, you better not buy them because then you are getting stuck. So you buy wireless on top of wired is pretty, overlay.
Sort of running out of time. Thank you for a very wonderful presentation, Rakesh. I think very energetic, very involving. I think everybody enjoyed it. So Rakesh should be here, so please be sure to catch up with him. He'll be able to answer your questions and clear up any doubts that you may have. So please be sure to connect with him.